Are you on a quest to achieve optimal physical and spiritual health? Well, stay tuned to get some tips and some encouragement on your journey to wellness. My name is Jason Bradley, and you're watching Urban Report. Hello and welcome to Urban Report. My guest today is Reese Rafferty, and she is a part of the 3ABN Health Ministries Department. Welcome to Urban Report, Reese.
Thank you, Jason.
Yes.
I'm so happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. You know, last time I interviewed you with Pastor Rafferty, and we kind of made that introduction there. But this time we are going to talk all about health.
I'm flying solo.
Yes, but hey, you love health.
I do.
And you're passionate about it, and it really shines forth. So I just want to jump into your journey. Tell us a little bit about your health journey.
My personal health journey, grew up in a healthy environment, a blue zone, one of the blue zones in the world, and mine happened to be Loma Linda, California.
Nice.
So,
now explain what a blue zone is for those that don't know.
Yeah, a blue zone is where they have found that a considerable population, community of people actually live to past 100 years of age. They have low chronic disease, and they look for what is it about them? What is it about this community that has produce such amazing results in terms of, aged, healthy, et cetera. And they found them in different places in the world, but Loma Linda, California was one of them. And so being raised in that environment and immersed with some of those qualities of good health, definitely were in my home. So I was really blessed to have that experience and just the atmosphere that health was super important, and it is.
Yes.
I see health as so integral to happiness.
Did you ever have any challenges along the way in your health journey?
Yeah, I did, and some of them were intestinal and digestive.
Okay.
I've always been super starry-eyed about food, just like love food, foodie, I enjoy it so much, but sometimes it didn't always agree with me. And trying to find some of the answers to that probably led me on my path.
Gotcha. And so that's how you overcame those obstacles? How did you overcome those obstacles?
Yeah. I actually started learning about holistic health, what it meant to be healthy, like whole person, and I just started implementing those things that were important. So we always think of just nutrition, but it's not just nutrition, right? There's a lot of other components. As I implemented them in my lifestyle, they resulted in a healthier me.
Yes. Now, what role did your faith play in your health journey?
That's a good question. That was huge. I love the fact that God says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers." So in other words, He's really has my best interest at stake, the whole me, right? He wants me to be saved, but He also wants me to have a happy, healthy, comfortable existence on this earth as much as possible, and that He would have the answers. And so when I started looking, because there's so much information out there in terms of what it is that makes us healthy, I turned to the Word first, and that really gave me a foundation by which I sifted and saw everything else through.
Amen. So if people want to boost their immune system, if they want to achieve optimal health, what should they do?
That's another really good question. And I think that when people ask that question, they're thinking, give me the latest supplement, pill, herb, what can I do, take, swallow that will make my immune system really strong and powerful?
A quick fix.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
But I don't really have a quick fix. I mean, I could share with you, take, vitamin C, echinacea, vitamin D, all these things that are good for us, but they're not going to do what, again, a bigger picture, bigger approach is going to do. They're not going to have the same results that you could if you looked a little bit deeper. And that's kind of what I would love to be able to do with you today, is look a little bit deeper as to what is our immune system. And it's not like I am some immune system specialist, but as a dietitian, I see the world through the gut, through the digestive tract. And it's absolutely fascinating to me that our digestive tract is inhabited with trillions of microbes.
Trillions?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, trillions. So we're talking virus, bacteria, fungi, and other microbes that inhabit us. It's so interesting, Jason, because there's actually so much more of them than human DNA. In other words, when I think of who Jason is, you'd be like, yeah, I'm human, right? But really, the majority of what composes who you are, if we were to count all the individual cells, you're more microbe than human.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a wild thought.
It is. So
Yeah.
I'm basically a walking microbe.
You are a walking microbe. And it's so interesting because we've been raised in this germ theory where we're like, oh, bacteria, stay away. Virus, keep it. And yet we don't realize, but that's part of who I am.
Wow.
So if we take that into consideration, then our understanding of how the immune system functions can enlarge, because in reality, the immune system doesn't function in an isolated manner where it does its thing and then the rest of my body can do its thing. It's actually intimately connected with our hormone system, we call it our endocrine system, our nervous system, but it's also really intimately connected with our microbiome.
Wow. Now, what is a microbiome?
Yeah, so that's the term, microbiome, microbiota, that's the term that's given for what I call the community. And it's just a community of various different unique individual strains, species of microbes. We mentioned bacteria, virus, fungi, et cetera, that live on and within us. They literally are stationed, the majority of them are stationed on all of our, what's called our mucosal linings. And when you think of a mucosal lining, all you need to do is open your mouth.
Gotcha.
Okay, and you see this, it's wet, kind of slippery, right, all the way down. So every entrance into our body, our nose, our ears, they're all lined with this mucosal tissue. And that mucosal tissue is an excellent place to live for all these microbes. So these microbes live not only in my intestines, but they live, for example, in my respiratory tract.
Wow.
We think of our lungs as sterile, or we think everything needs, well, there's nothing sterile about us, And so take an example of a virus.
Okay.
We breathe it in, right? So we breathe in this virus and it lands on the mucosal surface of our lungs. Okay? So there it lands. Well, it's not alone, because surrounding it, living in this mucosal lining are all these trillions of microbes. So it lands there, and how does my immune system know which one's friend and which one's foe, right?
That's an excellent question. How does it?
Yeah. So one's an invader, right? The virus is the invader, but the other ones are there, and they are living in this, what we call it, a symbiotic relationship with us, where it's like mutually beneficial. They're actually benefiting us. We couldn't survive without these microbes that that are composed of who we are. Who we are is composed of them. It's kind of weird. We think of it as them and us, but it's not. It's really, it's all just me. Anyway, so this virus lands on the lungs, and the microbes that surround it are actually the eyes and ears of the immune system. So if you went to like some big concert where there was so many people, just hundreds and hundreds of people, right? They're all standing, but you find out one of them has a gun and is there to do harm. And there's some security guards there, but there's way more people than there is security guards. How is the security guard going to find that one person who is a terrorist? That's the question. So they're looking through everyone, but how are they going to find that? Well, only if the people around that terrorist say, this guy's acting weird, and there's something bulging out of his pocket, and he's, that type of thing. And then they've got walkie-talkies, and they're like, yo, come over here to this section of the concert place, and so that's what they're doing.
So they're communicating and they're sending the signals, and then the body can respond and fight. The mucosal lining, though, is that an act of protection? Does it act as protection now?
Oh, absolutely. And what helps produce that mucosal lining is the bacteria themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of supposed to be like a barrier of protection that the bacteria produce. Bacteria do so much for us. So when they walkie-talkie, right, that, hey, there's something going on, do you know they walkie-talkie to the control center, the command center, which is actually the gut microbiome. So now in our gut, right, we've got trillions of microbes there, and these microbes here in my lungs, they found communicate with the microbes in my gut.
Okay.
And it's the microbes in my gut that in turn tell the immune system, hey, we are dispatching you to the lungs. You need to go there right away. There's an invader in this section. Take care of it, right? And if that communication doesn't happen, it's kind of fascinating. They've done research where they found, wow, if communication doesn't happen, if the microbes in your lungs don't communicate to the gut right away, then that virus is there and it's homekeeping. It's developing itself, it's multiplying. It can really set up shop so that by the time eventually the immune system is, alerted to what's going on, they've got a stronghold. Then it's really in there and the immune system has to really put out the big guns, right? Whereas if the microbiome in my lungs is healthy and doing what it's supposed to do, communicates to the gut communicates to the immune system takes its stuff there. And meanwhile, this is so cool too, while all this is taking place, this communication, the microbes in the gut are doing their part to destroy this guy. So these people who are around, you know, you've heard, if a terrorist comes, one of the best things to do is some of these people who risk their own lives, but they try to take him down before he does a bunch of damage.
Yes.
And so that's what these microbes are doing.
Wow.
They're
so
trying.
They just jump on it.
They do.
Yes.
Yeah. And they try to. They produce their own ammunition.
Okay.
Against this invading virus, and they also compete for the property and whatever nutrients that this guy's trying to
feed off of.
Yes.
Steal.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So how do you enhance that level of communication?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't even know if I have like the answer. I think it's so important for us just to be aware, first of all, that when we have a healthy microbiome, that is going to serve us and really stimulate what's called a balanced immune response. So we always think about having I want a strong immune system.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But really, you know when you feel miserable when you're sick and you're like fever, headache, coughing, you're in pain, you're just miserable. Like, where's my immune system? How come it's not fighting for me?
Yes.
Well, that is your immune system. That is your immune system. The virus could be doing its thing and you could be like, feeling like nothing's going on, but it's your immune system that is launching the attack, and that attack is what's eliciting those symptoms.
Wow.
See?
Wow, that's deep.
So what you need though is for that, you want that to take place, but you also want it to be balanced, because a lot of times, we hear about cytokine storms or all these things. My immune system may be overreacting or not in a balance. There's different phases of immune function. So
with that, if it's overreacting, is that like an autoimmune disease, or where does autoimmune and how does an autoimmune disease come into play with that?
Oh, that's kind of a different topic, but yes, autoimmunity is when when you've lost the ability to know whether that was friend or foe. Right? Remember we said, it's the commensal bacteria. It's the bacteria that are part of me that detect the virus and that alert. But if they don't detect the virus, then things can go wrong. So part of that detection is really important. So when our immune system starts fighting against me and we've lost that semblance of, is this friend or foe, then that's when autoimmunity comes, and then my immune system is attacking my own cells, right? But that's different than like what we're talking about, these phases of immune function. So what we want is for the immune system to launch that hardcore attack initially, but then to be taken to the next step where inflammation dies down and it can just keep doing its thing, and we develop recognition for this virus so that I can fight it, more effectively next time. But research has found that what communicates and elicits that next phase of immune function is microbes. It's the microbes again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the microbes are where you want to take care of the microbes.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
In fact, they found that what helps that there's certain immune cells that really help take the immune function to the next level, right? From being, oh, I'm so miserable and a lot of inflammation to things calming down. So there's certain cells that do that. And they found that those cells, if they don't get the walkie-talkie communication from the microbes, that it's like they'll just stand by and the virus is right there and they don't even know it's there. They're not stimulated to respond.
It's like they're turning a blind eye.
Turning a blind, it'd be like TSA if someone was going through with a gun and they were watching it go and they were like, is that a gun or a curling iron? Oh, we don't know, we're just gonna let them through. You know what I mean?
Wow, yes.
So they lose some of their, it's fascinating to realize that, no, there is so much interdependence, you know, when it comes to our body systems and the need for a healthy microbiome. So your question was, do you want to state it again?
About the autoimmune, we talked about that.
Oh yeah, but about the healthier
immune system and boosting the immune system.
So how do we do that?
Yes.
Well, through the eyes of, there's a lot of ways, but through the lens of what we just talked about right now, you know, when we think about the microbiome and what makes for a healthy microbiome. And that microbiome, again, is just the community of microbes, all the vast complexity and diversity of them throughout my whole body. Because in every part of my body, they do their part in communicating with the immune system and making for a balanced, healthy immune function. So then the attention and the focus goes to, well, yeah, how do I have a healthy microbiome? Okay, so then we think a lot of different things. That's where it really comes to food in a lot of ways, to be honest with you.
This is where I'm starting to get excited as we transition into the food section.
Yeah, good.
I love it.
You're a foodie too.
I love it.
You know, there's other things that are really important. For example, people who live in tune with nature. There's microbes in the soil. There's microbes on animals and farms and in pond water, lake water. And when we engage with all of that, you know, summertime swimming in the lake or farming, gardening, we are being booted up.
Wow.
There's a sense in which my own microbiome is being enriched. When I'm interacting with other people, our microbiomes are somehow communicating and intersecting, and I'm benefited, hopefully, by that, you know, in a healthy situation, right? I mean, it can work to the negative as well when we get sick, but all these things are important as well. But when it comes to food, when we think about this microbiome, I like to liken it to like the Amazon forest, its own ecosystem that thrives in diversity. And we as humans go to the Amazon forest and we have no idea how it all functions so harmoniously and beautifully and everything's mutually benefiting the other, you know, type of thing, and it's just existed there for hundreds of years and it's been so healthy until we go in there and we're like, oh, that beetle's annoying, or you know, whatever, and we kill the beetle and we don't realize all what we just did.
Chain reaction.
The chain reaction, right? So when we think about that in relation to our ecosystem, it's just as crucial that we support the diversity. And that diversity is supported when we consume diverse foods.
Yes.
And the foods the nutrients that really, there's a lot of nutrients that can benefit the microbiome, the diversity, but it's mostly coming from the plant kingdom.
Okay.
So there's different plant chemicals that are super important. And when I use that word chemicals, I just mean compounds, you know, that are in the plant that are that are beyond vitamins and minerals, but that actually can feed the good guys in the gut. And then fiber. And fiber is so huge, and we consume so little in America. That's actually one of the first things that I will assess when I see patients is, you know, what's their fiber intake? Because that gives me a lot of information as to, are we feeding them?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Type of thing. And fiber is a term, but again, there's so many different kinds of fiber, and we don't have to worry about it if we're consuming a diverse kinds of plant-based foods.
So in other words, like if, let's say we're consuming maybe red peppers, red bell peppers, and green bell peppers, and yellow bell peppers, and maybe some spinach or something, is it the different colors of the food too, when we're talking about this diversity of food, like the different colors?
Yeah, different colors and different categories. So when people say, I don't eat grains or I don't eat beans, they're wiping out a whole category. And within that category, then there's all the diversity, right? There's different grains, there's different kinds of legumes. And you're like, oh man, you're missing out on how God intended to feed this diversity inside of us, you know, with all those, the different unique ingredients that are in these foods.
Yes, I got to get my life together because I don't like some of the stuff
that I just mentioned.
I'm not a huge bean fan, but I do eat some beans and stuff like that too. So yeah, well, I'll have to work on it. I'll have to work on that.
Right, and there's so many different ways of incorporating those kinds of foods. You know, maybe hiding them type of thing, maybe that'll work. But I think nature's so cool because there is so much variety. So hopefully we find, you know, a few things from each category that we can. And I do think it's important to realize sometimes I'm not just eating for this.
Yes.
Right? I'm also eating for them.
Yes.
And when I do that, it's that other-centered or me-centered, but in a good way. Anyway, I think that can really promote health.
Yeah, it's like you're eating to live. You don't live to eat.
Right. A little bit of both.
Yeah. I've got to transition from the living to eat to the eating to live part. I'm somewhere in there. It's a journey.
Yeah, totally.
You take it step by step.
Absolutely.
So how do we stimulate, or can we stimulate the production of, is it the microbes? Can we stimulate production of those?
Yeah, so it's, you know, one of the other things that I think, I'm going to answer that question, that I think we need to take into consideration is what stunts them or can destroy them.
That's good.
And fascinating that we inherit our microbiome from our mother.
Really?
As we're born through the vaginal canal, that's how we're initially, and in mother's womb, that's how we're inoculated, right? With that, and then the first 3 years of our life, huge setting up, you know, what my microbiome is, and what can really impede a healthy microbiome or harm is a lot of the medications and antibiotics that sometimes we take not when we absolutely have to.
Gotcha.
They're there for a reason. You know, they're there to help us get over a hurdle or save lives, etc. But our over-medication of ourselves, especially when we're on these medications for decades, and we know that they affect somehow our digestive tract, those things affect our microbiome, and then we can pass that on to future generations.
Wow.
So there's things like that I think, we got to take those into consideration. If I'm trying to eat a healthy diet, but I'm still taking these things that are harming the microbiome, because these antibiotics destroy bacteria, right? Even my own, they can hurt. And I think it's really important after people do take antibiotics that we try to, you know, re-support the healthy growth and
like taking a probiotic or something like that
I
after?
think probiotics have a place. Probiotics, though, are bacteria. You're swallowing bacteria.
Yeah, that sounds pretty gross.
Doesn't that sound wild?
It does.
Except when you realize that, remember, you're mostly bacteria.
That's true. That's true.
So probiotics are great, except that you go to a store and you're like, there's all these bottles of probiotics. Which one do I take? And there's something called strain specificity, which means that you want to find a specific strain, hopefully, that has been studied and found to be beneficial for the concern that you have.
Gotcha.
And thankfully, there has started that kind of research. And that's where it's helpful to find someone who has a little bit more knowledge on that topic or can go to a database and find out the information and say, this one has been found to be really beneficial for people who have similar symptoms to you, that kind of thing. That can be really good. So I do believe there's a place for probiotics. You look at traditional foods and how they've been preserved.
Yes.
And there's usually bacteria, yogurts, kimchi, it's the sauerkraut, all of those you're taking in probiotics as well. But then there's also prebiotics. And prebiotics is when you're intentionally feeding them.
Okay.
So that can be done through a supplement, or that can be looked at as foods. You know, all these foods that have prebiotics in them, nutrients that have been found to significantly increase beneficial bacteria in my gut. And they can measure that because these bacteria produce byproducts. And this is one of the ways they impact our health so much, is because the bacteria live there, but they ferment whatever comes down, you know, leftovers, but then they give off byproducts. And some of those byproducts are gas, right? We know that, but they also produce molecules. And these molecules affect the environment, so the health of the gut itself, but they're also absorbed into our body. And that's how they can have such system-wide influence and impact.
Gotcha.
So we can measure some of those byproducts and know, we're missing some key species here, and if we take this prebiotic, we notice some of those byproducts increasing and health being restored. So those are all different ways. I hope I answered your question at least.
Yeah, I think you did. I think what's so crucial is that we eat the right things. That's what I'm getting from all of this, is that we need to be mindful of our health because so much takes place in the gut.
Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
And so making sure that we eat a variety of the right things, not just a variety of foods, but a variety of the right types of foods, makes all the difference.
It does. And you look at the standard American diet and the standard American way of eating, we're really limited in terms of diversity. We eat a lot of white flour and meat and dairy products. And we'll put those together in a variety of different ways, but it's still those kind of ingredients which don't have fiber in them, and they're not supporting a healthy microbiome. So what you just said is super key, that we look at not just what not to eat, but am I eating enough of the good kinds of things? I think that should be more of our emphasis.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how God created us.
It is.
I mean, there's so many moving parts that I can't even wrap my mind around it. I'm still trying to process everything that you just gave me just now. I'm processing right now as we speak. But I can't believe our time is just about up. But I want you to speak to that individual at home that's on that health journey. Just look in this camera and just offer them a word of encouragement.
Yeah, if you're on your own journey for experiencing better health, I think there's nothing quite like finding someone else to encourage you on that pathway, whether that's a health provider or a friend, someone who can support you in helping you make the changes. I see a lot of people who are trying to make and implement healthier lifestyle choices, but it's rough going when you have to do it by yourself. So finding a partner, finding someone who can share the journey with you, I think that would be one of the first things that I would encourage people to do.
Absolutely. That's so important, is having that accountability partner, somebody to encourage you along the way.
Yep.
Very well said. Thank you so much for the insight that you've provided today. We're going to have to do this again.
Oh, good.
Maybe we'll talk about exercise or something like that and add on to it. Thank you, Reese. And we want to thank you for joining us. Stay on that health journey. Until next time, God bless you.